Behold, O creatures of the dark, I shall be the one to fill your dark souls with light. Or rather, Vega will.
36.
Hello everyone, this is the Seeker of Grace. The festival known as Christmas is approaching, and in anticipation of that, I have decided to return to the world of Doom Eternal to purify the souls of the damned with my sacred light. Yes, this is the beginning of a Doom Eternal Christmas-themed challenge run, except that this time, it shall be Vega who embarks on this challenge. After all, Vega is the expert among us in guns, and would be the most appropriate candidate for a challenge of this nature. Now I am suddenly tempted to make Bridget embark on a challenge run in the future. Would you be interested to see Vega and Bridget suffer, or perhaps I should say, challenge themselves? Then please, click on the like and subscribe buttons. Now let's return to our current challenge run. When you think of smiting the demons in Doom Eternal with a holy light, the first weapon that comes to mind is probably the Unmaykr. This weapon certainly has a very angelic aesthetic to it, but more than that is its reputation, according to Vega, for being the worst weapon in your arsenal. There are apparently two main reasons for this. Firstly, the Unmaykr uses a rare type of ammunition, Argent, which is not easily accessible. Secondly, each of its bullets do not inflict a lot of damage. But since we plan to use the Unmaykr to stay true to the spirit of this Christmas challenge, we might as well test its potential. Specifically, we want to see if any of the stages in Doom Eternal can be cleared using only the Unmaykr. Considering the Unmakr's limited supply of ammunition, the stage set for this challenge is Sentinel Prime, where there is but one enemy encounter, the Gladiator boss fight. To be clear, since Vega is only allowed to use the Unmaykr for this challenge run, he is not allowed to use any action or resource that might otherwise affect his offensive capabilities. These include the Flame Belch, Chainsaw, Fragmentation Grenade, Ice Bomb, Blood Punch, Crucibles, Runes, Cheat Codes, and, naturally, any other gun. Vega managed to convince us, after a long discussion, to allow him to use jumps and dashes for mobility and evasive purposes, and to be allowed to use suit upgrades for convenience, since it cannot be disabled. Still, with all these restrictions in place, Vega will not be able to perform what he calls the Doom Dance. This means that every enemy fighting alongside the boss can no longer be considered a resource, but merely an obstacle. In light of this situation, Vega made one more request for this challenge run: to be allowed to fight the boss on I'm Too Young to Die difficulty. Quite the ironic expression for a computer program. And the challenge is deemed a failure if Vega loses one extra life, or he runs out of ammunition for the Unmaykr. And now that the conditions have been established, let's see if Vega can slay the Gladiator with just 60 bullets. Vega's first attempt on this challenge felt quite like a trial and error. He shared that this is his first time using the Unmaykr for any serious battle, and given that the Gladiator is a shielded enemy similar to the Marauder, adjustments will likely have to be made in fighting this boss. especially when taking the Unmaker's slow projectile speed into account. In this experimental phase, Vega exploits every single gap in the Gladiator's attacks to shoot him. Unsurprisingly, the Gladiator recovers quickly enough from his faster attacks to deflect the Unmaker's bullets. At long last, Vega was able to land a hit on the Gladiator during a large opening, and this was the amount of damage he inflicted. Looking at the damage that 4 Unmaker bullets dealt, Vega was convinced that the Unmaker was doomed to fail him in this challenge, especially considering that the Gladiator has 2 phases. But as with all challenge runs, the show must go on, and Vega persisted in fighting with our encouragement. Throughout the remainder of the first attempt, Vega would only shoot at the Gladiator and consciously ignore or avoid its allies, meaning there were several occasions where Vega was overwhelmed by enemies. It truly was fortunate that the Gladiator would tend to hurt or kill its own allies with its own attacks. And against all odds, Vega managed to beat the first phase of this boss fight, though he had hardly any bullets to spare. And then a miracle happened. Yes, during the transition to phase 2, Vega's health and ammunition were magically replenished, giving him a fighting chance against the Gladiator's second phase. Hence, by some twist of fate, Vega has effectively been given up to 120 bullets to use against the Gladiator. And that is not the only advantage that Vega has been given. It became more apparent in Phase 2 that enemies would yield health replenishing resources when they were killed by the Gladiator. And as a result, avoiding damage became a trivial matter to Vega. In that regard, we might have made this challenge too easy for him. To be fair to Vega, however, there were many other aspects of this challenge which made it difficult. Specifically, it became a lot harder to hit the Gladiator in Phase 2, because his behavior becomes more aggressive and unpredictable. And on the topic of hitting him, this is the amount of damage the Gladiator receives from a direct hit from the Unmaker. Indeed, the Gladiator has a lot more health in Phase 2 as compared to Phase 1. With all these factors combined, Vega failed the challenge on his first attempt. In spite of his failure, however, he also made a bold claim with a glimmer in his figurative eyes. The Gladiator is killable using the Unmaker. He explained that according to his calculations, the Gladiator in Phase 2 will succumb if every bullet of the Unmaker hits him cleanly. And with that, the true challenge begins. With every subsequent attempt at this boss fight, Vega grew more familiar with the Gladiator's movements as well as the limitations of the Unmaker, and adjusted his approach accordingly. For instance, Vega would look for very specific attacks to counter, and he would only fire his gun at a very close range when he was sure that all of the Unmaker's projectiles will hit. And might I add that as he conditioned himself to Phase 1 of the Gladiator fight, he became more comfortable using some of the Unmaker's ammunition to kill some of the troublesome enemies. Vega also mentioned how helpful it was that his performance in Phase 1 has little to no effect on his available resources in Phase 2. But that is where the advantages end. Remember that this challenge has an absurd amount of restrictions, and these restrictions become painfully clear in Phase 2 of the boss fight. Now imagine this. In order to ensure that all of the Unmakr's bullets hit the gladiator, Vega must weave his way through all the enemies to shoot a target who is almost constantly on the move. To make matters worse, the damage dealt by the Unmaykr is not consistent, as it is dependent on which part of the gladiator its bullets hit. Hence, on every attempt, Vega would fall ever so slightly short of killing the gladiator, until finally, on his 10th attempt, he succeeded in landing all 60 clean hits on Phase 2 of the gladiator fight. But the question remains, were those 60 clean hits enough to kill the gladiator? Well, are you ready to see the outcome? And so, 60 good shots from the Unmaykr was seemingly not enough. Vega was thoroughly disappointed. As a sort of consolation, I suggested that Vega gave the gladiator a punch to vent his anger. I cannot begin to imagine how frustrated he must have felt. So, with everything that transpired, we decided to deem this challenge a failure. If anything, it served to reinforce the point that the Unmaykr is a terrible weapon. It seems that this holy light crafted by aliens is rather ineffective. But I know of another source of holy light, God's holy light, which has never disappointed me. So in this Christmas season, perhaps you can consider looking to God to light your way. And if I may relay a short message to Vega, while you may have failed the challenge, I deeply respect your efforts. And if you wish to encourage Vega, or simply find this video entertaining, then please click on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you for watching, and grace be with you.